Are you really going to your cousin's wedding, alone? Vivian. The host's smile looked kind on camera, but it felt like a blade. Studio lights burned. A red tally light blinked. The floor manager whispered, "We're live," as if the whole country hadn't already leaned in. Vivian Stone kept her shoulders square. "I never arrive alone," she said, measured, crisp, unblinking. The audience murmured, then clapped. Theme music. Cut to ads. The red light died. In the hush after performance, the lie pressed against her teeth. Vivian rose, shook the host's hand, and left the set with the calm that had built towers. In the corridor, a junior publicist thrust a phone at her. "It's everywhere," he panted. Clips, memes, "I never arrive alone" is trending. The comments fell like confetti and knives. Queen, icon, who's the date she's bluffing? X is bringing a model. Popcorn, car, she said. The elevator sealed her into mirrored quiet. A severe ponytail, a steel suit, a face made for weathering storms stared back at her. When the doors opened to the garage, her driver held the sedan door like a soldier under orders. Only on the ramp to daylight did she let her jaw unclench. Abigail called. "You could have said no comment," her friend said, "or literally anything else." No comment is blood in the water. Vivian rubbed the bridge of her nose. "And it bought us time. Time for what you just told America you won't show up alone. Aspen is 6 weeks away, I'm aware, and Ethan will bring a camera-ready fiancé who treats Mountain Vows like a brand launch. I'm not giving him the satisfaction." Abigail's tone softened. "What do you need?" Options, Vivian said. "Clean ones. Nothing that turns into a second story. Actors leak, influencers monetize, CEOs are landmines. You won't use anyone on payroll. No employees," Vivian said, sharper than she meant. Then who? Someone real. The word surprised her. Someone who doesn't want my company or my money. Someone who can stand beside me without needing the spotlight. That narrows the field to unicorns and golden retrievers. Find me both. They hung up. The car slipped beneath her tower's portico. Photographers flared like static. Vivian. "Who's the lucky guy?" Message for Ethan. She didn't break stride. In the private elevator, her phone buzzed. "Mother? Margaret. You looked composed. For the wedding, do not embarrass the family." Vivian typed, deleted. She let the city fall away until it was only a silver map under a pale sky. In the penthouse white stone, dark wood glass, she stood at the window and practiced what she avoided remembering. With Ethan, early years of champagne and blueprints. The last year, 2 phones on a counter and a silence you could bruise your hands on. She had kept his last name because it kept deals steady. "I never arrive alone," she told her reflection. A publicist would call it confidence. An enemy would call it denial. She decided it would be a promise. Her assistant, Maya, appeared with folders. Contracts to sign. Charity gala at 7. The Aspen planner needs the ceremony time this week, the Ridgelight, they say. How poetic, Vivian said. Send mock-ups to my office. Move the gala to 8:15. We'll stay 40 minutes. Maya hesitated. Mr. Stone's team confirmed attendance with his fiancé. Name Camille Hart. Of course, the wholesome model with a philanthropic podcast. "Thank you," Vivian said evenly. "That's all." When the door clicked, the penthouse felt too bright. She darkened 2 lamps and let the room fall into a light you could tell the truth in. Her phone buzzed. "Abigail, dinner." "I'll bring a list of candidates we can discard." Vivian later. "I have a commitment." She didn't, but answers rarely showed up under chandeliers. She changed into dark denim and a soft sweater, tied her hair with less precision, and took the service elevator down. Take the long way, she told the driver. They rolled through neighborhoods she had developed, past parks she had endowed by Cityview Elementary, where her niece colored beneath a banner about kindness. Parents gathered at the curb like a small tide. A father knelt to knot a shoelace. A grandmother lifted a backpack with 2 hands and a grunt. No cameras, no microphones. Just ordinary devotion having its daily say. "Pull over," Vivian said. The driver eased to the curb. She watched through the glass as small people and small problems met big, reliable hands. Her phone pinged. Margaret. The wedding is not about Ethan. It is about the family. Please remember how they talk. I know Vivian typed, and I know what I said on live television. I intend to keep it. 6 weeks. Enough time to build a tower. Enough time to make a promise true. Home, she said. Back upstairs, she didn't rehearse. She planned. On a black notepad, a list took shape qualities boundaries lines not to cross. Discretion. Dignity. No headlines. No overlap with work. No NDAs that become late-night jokes. At the bottom, she wrote and underlined twice. Rial. Abigail again. Tomorrow morning, I'm dropping art supplies at Cityview Elementary for the community drive. Come, if you want to meet the real you just wrote down. Vivian's thumb hovered. She pictured the banner, the shoelace the grandmothers lift. She pictured herself in a place where no one cared about market caps or magazine covers, only whether you showed up when the bell rang. I'll be there, she typed. The river kept its disciplined route toward the bay. In the glass, her reflection looked less like a statue and more like a woman who had just decided something important. Her mind ran the numbers 6 weeks. Public appearances she could not dodge. Headlines she could not control. Margins of error she could minimize. Under the math, another current moved quieter and more dangerous. She did not want to be humiliated. But deeper still, she did not want to be invisible. Not at an altar where her family would measure her with their eyes. Not next to a man who had once told her a woman like her was safer alone. The thought landed like a stone in a lake. The ripples were resolve. Somewhere a producer cued the clip again and America watched her smile and deliver the line. But in the quiet, where cameras couldn't go, Vivian Stone lifted her pen, wrote a plan no one would read, and shaped the first step toward keeping a promise she hadn't known she needed. Tomorrow, Cityview. After that, the rest. I never arrive alone. The bell hadn't rung yet, but Cityview Elementary was already humming, zipper teeth, sneaker squeaks, the small thunder of 100 tiny lives trying to begin well. A banner above the front office read, "Kindness counts," in letters cut from glitter paper. Vivian signed the visitor log, slid her license across the counter, and accepted a laminated badge that declared guest like a warning and a welcome. Abigail appeared beside her with 2 canvas totes of markers and sketchbooks. "Don't scowl," she whispered. "This is a kindness ecosystem." "They smell fear." "I'm not scowling," Vivian said. "I'm thinking." You do both with the same eyebrows. A teacher with a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest teacher," waved them into the hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed. Flyers for book fair and flu shots fluttered on a corkboard. Through the open door of a first-grade classroom, a child practiced the vowels like pledges. At the end of the hall, a man in a blue work shirt knelt by radiator sleeves, rolled forearms dusted with the dignified dirt of useful work. He was listening to the building the way a person listens to another person, with patience, with attention, as if the pipes had something important to confess. A little girl stood near him, nibbling a granola bar, and every so often he looked up to make sure she chewed. Great Abigail murmured, "Your unicorn is a janitor." "He's not a unicorn," Vivian said, and didn't realize she'd softened her voice. The wrench clicked. The man rose. He was taller than the idea of him, and something in his face suggested he had learned how to make quiet bigger than noise. He set the wrench aside, tested the airflow with the back of his hand, and then turned straight into the avalanche. A second grader shot down the corridor backpack, unzipped avalanche of crayons spilling behind. A pink box of colored pencils burst against the floor like confetti. The little girl yelped, hands flying to her cheeks. Vivian stepped forward before she could debate it. She crouched palm to the tile and began gathering crayons reds with bitten ends noble stubs of midnight blue. She lined them in a neat rainbow back into the cracked plastic. The little girl sniffled. Vivian handed over 3 shades of gold. "Artists always keep their light together," she said quietly. The girl's eyes widened like a door opening. "Thank you." The man in blue had watched the entire exchange. Something passed over his face, Not relief, exactly, not suspicion, but the calculation of a parent who has seen kindness turn transactional. He touched the girl's shoulder. "You good, M?" he asked. "Uh-huh." The child hugged the pencil box, then inspected Vivian with frank interest. "I like your earrings. They look like raindrops that forgot to fall." Abigail bit back a laugh. Vivian felt something loosen in her chest. "Then I'll remind them later," she said. "Go on. The bell's going to tell secrets." The girl M skipped toward her classroom. The man stayed. Up close he smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and fresh air. His name patch read J. Carter. "Thanks for helping her," he said. The gratitude was sincere, the warning in the next breath just as honest. "But no photos, please. It turns their mornings into performances." Vivian straightened. "I don't do school hallway photo ops. The city does," he said mildly. "So I ask." Abigail lifted both palms. "Relax, Paul Bunyan. We came to drop supplies, not lighting rigs." He glanced at the tote bags, then at Vivian's visitor badge, then at Vivian. If he recognized her, he didn't say. He didn't use her last name as a lever. He didn't reach for his phone like a net. He stood with his feet set as if being steady was a job and he intended to do it well. "I'm Jack," he said. "Vivian." He nodded once as if names were tools that worked better when acknowledged. The radiator sighed with new warmth. "Your fix sounds content," she offered. Jack half smiled. "Buildings behave when you listen to them. Same as people." It was a simple line. It landed like scripture without a church. The principal hurried up with sticky notes on both hands and gratitude in both eyes. "Ms. Stone, thank you for the art supplies. Our kids use them like oxygen. Mr. Carter, did we wake the dragon in the second-floor radiator fed it?" Jack said. "It purrs now." "Bless you both," the principal said, cell phone vibrating against her cheekbones. "If anyone asks about the leaky window, we're calling it a water feature." She jogged away already in 3 conversations. Abigail nudged Vivian. "I have a meeting at 9. Play nice. I always do. That's what statues say." She squeezed Vivian's elbow, then vanished down the hall, leaving the air rearranged. For a breath time felt unhurried. Down the corridor a bell trilled. Doors opened. The school inhaled the day and exhaled possibility. Jack watched the stream of small humans with a look Vivian recognized from blueprints, the look you give something you intend to protect. She caught herself studying the seam of his sleeve, the clean line of his collar, the competent hands. The list on last night's notepad blinked behind her eyes. Discretion. Dignity. Real. "You work the early shift," she said. "I work the building," he answered. "Early comes with it." "Is Emma your daughter?" "Yes." "Does she always eat her breakfast that carefully? She thinks granola bars have rules." "And do they?" "They do today." Vivian's mouth quirked before she could stop it. She glanced toward the classroom where the girl had disappeared. Through the window's blur of paper snowflakes and construction paper hearts, Emma took a careful seat, set her pencils, and rested both palms on the desk as if ready to receive instructions from the universe. Vivian said, not meaning to say it out loud, "Some mornings look like brand launches. That one looks like a life." Jack didn't ask what she meant. He followed her gaze, then looked back. "Some mornings take less from you," he said. "Those are the ones you try to build more of." There it was again, plain words that held a longer echo. Mr. Carter, a custodian, called from the stairwell. "We've got a spill in the cafeteria. The kind with gravity. On my way." Jack lifted the wrench, clicked it into place on his belt, and turned back once. "Thanks again for helping, Em. First weeks of spring, everything is fragile. People, too," Vivian said. "Especially people." He went. Vivian realized she'd been standing with her arms at her sides unposed. The fluorescent hum receded. The children's laughter swelled. Her phone buzzed a storm of messages she didn't need right now. One from her mother. Remember the family. The ridge at sunset photographs best. Another from a reporter. Care to confirm your statement yesterday? Who's your date? She locked the screen, like closing a door. Then she did something she almost never did. She sat on a wooden bench under a bulletin board with crooked staples and read the thank you notes taped there by clumsy hands. Thank you for crayons. Colors make my brain feel bigger. Thank you for paper. Paper is where I put my storms. When Abigail returned, Vivian was still reading, so Abigail asked, loading curiosity into a single syllable. He's not what I expected, Vivian said. What did you expect someone rehearsed? She shook her head. He doesn't perform for anyone. Or he performs for the only audience that matters. Abigail tipped her chin toward the classroom windows. 8-year-olds are brutal critics. They began walking toward the office. The hallway smelled faintly of orange cleaner and pencil shavings, a scent memory could live in. 2 boys argued about who got to hold the turtle book. The art teacher wheeled a cart that jangled like a parade. At the door, the principal intercepted them again, breathless. Before you go, Miss Stone, I know you don't do photo ops, but could we— Not for the paper, for the bulletin board, for the kids to see names on the wall belong to humans who show up. Vivian hesitated. A dozen calculations chimed. Then she nodded. For the bulletin board. They took a quick picture, no angles, no halo of ring light, just 3 adults under kindness counts. Eyes bright with the ridiculous necessary hope that small things add up. As they exited into the morning, the city didn't look like a battlefield. It looked like a place where a promise could be kept if a person chose to be stubborn enough. Abigail slid on sunglasses. We made it out without autographs. Congratulations. Vivian touched the visitor badge still clipped to her lapel and didn't remove it right away. You ever meet someone, she said, who doesn't try to be interesting and somehow becomes impossible to forget? Abigail's grin said she knew exactly what Vivian meant. I repeat, unicorn. Unicorns aren't real, Vivian said, but the word real carried a new weight. They reached the car. Photographers would be waiting at the tower at the restaurant at her own shadow. Aspen would come like an exam she hadn't wanted to take but had studied for anyway. 6 weeks had always sounded like a deadline. Now it sounded like a humane amount of time to decide something profound. Vivian looked back once through the glass doors past the banner down the hall where a man in blue was answering gravity in the cafeteria. He had said buildings behave when you listen to them. She wondered what happened to a life when someone finally listened. In the quiet that followed, a thought clicked into place clean as a seatbelt. Maybe the man she needed didn't live on a guest list or an investor call. Maybe he wore a name patch and told a little girl to finish her breakfast because mornings were fragile. Home, please, she told the driver. Abigail watched her with the patience of a friend who knew how decisions sounded when they began. You're thinking something reckless and good, she said. I'm thinking something true, Vivian replied. The car merged into the soft noise of the city, and for the first time since the red light on the camera blinked to life, she felt the day give a little under her feet, as if the world, like a well-tuned radiator, had decided to purr. I need to ask you something that sounds wrong, before it sounds right. Vivian said it before she could second-guess the sentence. The after-school hallway smelled like pencil shavings and sunshine caught in carpet. Jack Carter stood with a mop bucket and the calm gravity of a man who did not startle easily. Through the window of the art room, Emma hunched over a paper sun painting its rays with neat, serious strokes. Jack lifted an eyebrow. Most things that start wrong stay wrong. Not this, she said, or I wouldn't ask. He waited. He did not fill silence just because it had opened. Vivian smoothed a palm over the visitor badge still clipped to her sweater. 6 weeks from now, my extended family will fly to Colorado. Aspen. My cousin's wedding. My ex-husband plans to arrive with his fiancé and a camera crew disguised as guests. Jack's face did not change, but the muscles along his jaw acknowledged the word X like a fist you learned to slip. And I said on live television, I never arrive alone. She held his gaze. I don't want an actor. I don't want a headline. I want someone who can stand beside me and not need anything from me but the truth. You don't know me, he said. I know how you check if the radiator's breathing. Vivian nodded toward the classroom window. I know how you make your daughter finish breakfast because mornings are fragile. I know you listen before you fix. That doesn't make me your solution. No, she agreed. It makes you a good man. I need a good man. He leaned the mop against the wall and folded his arms, his only visible armor. What would you be asking? A weekend in Aspen. Rehearsal, dinner, ceremony, reception. Publicly, you'd be my partner. Privately, you'd have clear boundaries in writing. I don't want to perform affection. I want to mute a circus. He blinked once. Why me? Because if I paid a professional, they'd sell the story when the check clears. And because money doesn't move you the way it moves the world I live in. She let the admission land. I recognize that, and I respect it. He studied her for a long beat. The school hummed around them, lockers shutting like gentle doors, a child's laugh skipping down the hall. There it is, he said at last. Money. He kept his voice kind and steady. What would you offer a stranger to become not a stranger on command? Vivian chose the most honest answer. I would offer compensation for time and disruption. Not to you directly. She lifted a hand before he could object. To Emma. A contribution to a 529 college plan in her name, or a full scholarship to the school's after-school art program. I want clean lines. My daughter's future isn't a bargaining chip, Jack said. There was no anger in it, only boundary. And she doesn't need a fairy godmother. She needs a father who doesn't sell the shape of love. I'm not asking you to sell anything. Vivian glanced again at the art room. Emma blew on the paint cheeks, puffed patient with the sun. I'm asking you to lend steadiness to a weekend that won't be steady, to help me keep wolves from the door without becoming one. Jack's mouth tipped. You're good with sentences. I'm better with contracts. She let herself smile, then let it go. There would be rules. No. Expectations. No pretending in private. You can walk away at any time. If anyone crosses a line, we leave. I will shield you and Emma from my world as fiercely as I can. You're describing a transaction, he said. I'm trying to describe respect. He looked past her through the glass to his daughter's small shoulders squared to the task of getting light right. I have an 8-year-old, he said. She watches everything. If I teach her that we fix loneliness by faking it, she'll never forgive me. And I won't forgive myself. Then don't fake it, Vivian said softly. Just stand with me. Hold my coat when I give a toast. Tell me when my smile looks like armor. If anyone asks how we met, tell them the truth at a school hallway when a radiator decided to breathe. He huffed an unwilling laugh. You don't stop, do you not, when it matters. A classroom door opened. Emma appeared with her paper sun cupped like something breakable and brave. Dad Jack straightened. Hey, Em. Ready. Emma saw Vivian and held up the sun for inspection. I used 3 golds, she said. Some days need extra. They do. Vivian agreed. That's perfect. The girl's eyes flicked between them bright with questions she kept to herself. Jack touched the top of her head a small benediction. We should go. Vivian nodded. Thank you for listening. She stepped aside as they moved past, then paused. Jack, if the offer made your day heavier, I apologize. It wasn't my intent. He considered that, then gave her a look that didn't quite let her off the hook, but didn't hang her on it either. Intent counts, he said. Impact counts more. They left. Vivian stood in the emptied hallway, heart beating a fraction too fast for a conversation that had been mostly gentle. Her phone vibrated. 3 messages from PR, 1 from the Aspen planner, 1 from an unknown number with a gif of a tabloid headline, Stone to arrive with new love X plans. Fairy tale entrance. She closed the screen. She had made a plan. It had not survived first contact with a man who refused to be a prop. That night, in a small apartment across town, Jack set Emma's paper sun on the kitchen counter away from the spaghetti sauce. Who was that lady? Emma asked, feet swinging from a wobbly chair. Someone from the art drive, he said. Truth edited for age. He drained pasta steam, dampening his hairline. She asked for a favor I can't do. Because it's bad, because it's confusing. Emma twirled noodles thinking the way small philosophers think with eyebrows. Miss Jansen says if you don't understand a word problem, draw a picture. Jack smiled despite the knot he'd carried home. What picture do you draw for this one? A lady who doesn't want to be alone in front of people, Emma said. And a dad who doesn't want to be wrong in front of his kid. Sounds like both of them need a bench, Jack said. Someplace to sit until their hearts catch up with their heads. Emma chewed, then set down her fork. Dad. Yeah, Bug, you tell me, love is not a show. She touched the paper sun, careful not to smudge. But you also tell me helping is how we tell people they belong. What if you can help without pretending the room got quieter in the way kitchens sometimes do, like they know you are telling the truth inside them? Jack dried his hands on a towel and leaned on the counter. What would helping look like, he asked. Maybe you stand there so the wolves stay away, Emma said, echoing a line she could not have heard and somehow did. You can be yourself. She can be herself. You don't have to lie. You can say you are friends. People will ask questions. People always ask questions, Emma said with 8-year-old certainty. We don't have to answer all of them. He laughed, then, soft and reluctant. You and your 3 golds. It's a big sun, she said. Big days need big light. After Emma fell asleep with a library book on her chest, Jack stood by the window and watched the city hold its breath. He had spent 2 years keeping the world small enough to manage a schedule, a paycheck, a child, the sacred orbit between them. He had earned quiet the hard way. He did not want to trade it for someone else's noise, but a sentence tugged at him, stubborn as tide. Maybe you can help without pretending. He found the card the principal had given him when the fire alarm panel glitched last winter. Stone Development was printed top right in small, expensive type. He typed the number into his phone and stared at it until it became a choice instead of a threat. Vivian answered on the second ring. Jack. I can't be your lie, he said, but I can be your steady. If we write it down, if Emma isn't dragged into your world, if we walk away the minute the ground stops being honest. The breath on the other end sounded like a door unlocking. Yes, she said. Thank you. We'll make a simple agreement, clear boundaries, mutual exit. No press, no cross-currents with your job. I'll contribute to the school's art program in Emma's honor. Not a dollar crosses your doorstep without your consent. One more thing, he said. We tell Emma first. In words she can repeat back to me. Agreed. He could hear paper moving, a pen uncapped. There's a small event in Aspen before the wedding, she said. An engagement party. It's next week. Fewer people. Lower temperature. A rehearsal for us, in a sense. All right, I'll text flights, she said. And Jack A. beat. When my family asks who you are, it may be easier to use a word that closes 1,000 doors at once. What word? She hesitated only long enough to be decent. Fiancé. Jack stared at the dark window and saw himself look back, a man who fixed radiators and lunchboxes and the place where mornings start. That's not the truth. It's not, she said. It's also armor. 2 syllables that stop questions. We will not counterfeit a heart. We'll borrow a word to get through a weekend. He thought of Emma's paper sun. He thought of a woman who had asked a stranger for something wrong that might be right. Then we write it down, he said. Every line. Every line, Vivian echoed. When he hung up, the apartment did not feel smaller. It felt like a room you just measured accurately. He checked on Emma, tightened the cap on the gold paint, and whispered into the quiet, big light bug. Across the river, Vivian set her pen on a page labeled Agreement, and for the first time in months felt that a promise she'd made to the entire country might be kept without breaking anything worth keeping. Let's say it together, Jack told his daughter at the small kitchen table, travel mug steaming between them. Words we can carry. Emma hair in a crooked braid sat straighter. No pretending she recited. No lying. If people ask too many questions, we say we're tired because big parties make people tired even when they're happy. Ms. Stone is a friend. We're steady for the weekend. If anything feels wrong, we leave. Vivian stood in the doorway, uncharacteristically barefaced, a wool coat folded over her arm like a promise. And fiancé is armor, she added gently. 2 syllables to keep wolves from the door. We borrow it. We don't counterfeit your heart. Emma studied her a beat. Armor is heavy, she said. I'll carry the weight, Vivian replied. On the tarmac, the wind came off the Hudson with city grit. The jet waited sleek, impersonal, more tool than trophy. Inside, the cabin was quiet white and warm. A flight attendant offered juice in real glasses. Emma whispered thank you as if the glass could hear. Jack buckled in hands, careful on unfamiliar buckles. He looked like a man who had learned to travel light and now checked his pockets for the thing he might have forgotten, dignity perhaps, or the right to be here at all. Vivian watched him and made a decision on the spot. No champagne photos, no curated candids. Privacy wasn't a rule on their agreement. It was the point of the agreement. Altitude can make you feel strange, she said to Emma as the runway unfurled. If your ears pop, swallow hard. If your heart pops, we'll do the same. Emma grinned. My heart just made a small noise like a squirrel. Vivian laughed, a clean, unarmored sound. Jack glanced over, surprised by how much he wanted to hear it again. Above the clouds, the world lost edges. Vivian pulled a leather folder from her bag and slid a single page toward Jack Aspen weekend boundaries. He scanned the lines. No press, no interviews, no photographs without consent. Separate rooms. Exit plan, Marion Lodge, west entrance. Signal if needed, hand to watch face. You wore a watch on purpose, he said. I always know what time it is, she replied. That's how towers don't fall. He tapped the last line. Exit plan is good. She hesitated, then said the question she'd been circling. Do you want me to tell my mother anything ahead of time? What would you tell her? That you're the kind of man who checks if a building is breathing, Vivian said softly. That you know how to stand still without becoming furniture. Jack considered that. Tell her I'm here because my daughter believes in 3 shades of gold. Vivian nodded as if that was a credential recognized in every power room. They landed in a light so clean it felt like a new alphabet. Aspen was winter finishing its sentence, blue air, white breath pines standing like old truths. The Marion Lodge sat against a slope, all glass and timber, silvered by the kind of money that pretends it's rustic. In the lobby, a Steinway waited like a conversation no one had started yet. A wall of windows poured the mountains into the room. Staff moved the way trained people move, precisely and visibly. The planner's sleek ponytail headset clipboard swept up in a flurry of logistics. Miss Stone, welcome. Rehearsal 6, dinner 7, we've placed you. She glanced at Jack and upgraded her smile. And Mr. Carter, Vivian said, my fiancé. The word came out steady, undramatic, like a line you lay so a structure knows where to stand. The planner's smile brightened 3 degrees. Of course, she said. We've put you on the ridge side, discretion guaranteed. To Jack's ski, I fix radiators, he said easily. Useful, she said, uncertain whether to laugh. She decided yes and led them toward the elevators. A cousin intercepted eyes gleaming with the kind of curiosity that eats hours. Viv, you look less New York. In a good way. Her gaze slid to Jack, cataloging, curious. And this must be Jack, Vivian said. My fiancé. The cousin hugged Vivian too tightly and stage whispered in her ear, Ethan got here with the Instagram. The dress is a situation. She pulled back and mouthed wow at Jack as if he'd materialized from sensible myth, then pinwheeled away. In the suite, the mountain gathered at the windows like something ancient that had decided not to move. Emma pressed her hands to the glass. It's too big to keep, she breathed. Some things you don't keep, Jack said. You stand near them until you remember how small you're supposed to be. A knock. A bellman rolled in a small bed. Vivian had already arranged a vetted sitter from the lodge's childcare program for the dinner hours. She introduced her Mara, 22 early childhood ed references like gold thread, "Hi, Emma," Mara said, kneeling to eye level. "Want to build a mountain in the playroom and make it snow glitter?" Emma looked to her father. Jack nodded once. "Glitter comes home on your shoes," he warned. "We'll leave the storm downstairs," Mara promised solemnly. When they left for the engagement party, the sky had begun its slow pink turn. Vivian wore black that wasn't morning hair in a clean low knot, a single ring of onyx like a period on a declarative sentence. Jack wore a charcoal suit borrowed from a friend at the school whose son had outgrown it. He'd pressed it twice and still didn't trust its lapels. They walked the hall side by side in the particular silence of people who were trying not to rehearse. "Your smile," Jack said at the elevator, voice low. "It's looking like armor." "Thank you," she said, and let it go. The change was subtle and enormous. The ballroom was all windows and candlelight, a double helix of wealth and warmth. A string quartet combed Bach until it shone. Conversations lifted and fell like birds figuring out how to share the same sky. Heads turned as they entered, first to Vivian, the continent of her reputation preceding her, then to Jack, who didn't match the map and therefore became instantly interesting. "Is that him?" "She brought someone. He looks nice." Nice is not a brand. Maybe it's the new brand. Vivian's mother approached posture like a line drawn with a ruler. "Vivian." A cool kiss not far from the cheek. "You look composed." Her gaze arrowed to Jack. "And this is Jack Carter," he said, offering a hand. "Ma'am." Margaret's appraisal was fast-trained, not unkind. "Welcome," she said. "We are a family that appreciates steadiness." A glance at Vivian, meaning, "Do not embarrass us," translated into diplomacy. "Dinner will be unavoidable. Pace yourself." As Margaret moved on, Jack exhaled. I liked her honesty. "That was gentle," Vivian said. "You should see it when it's sharp." "Steel knows steel," he said. "You'll be fine." For 20 minutes they navigated introductions and small tests. Vivian told 3 short, true stories: a broken elevator, a donated playground, a morning at City View. Jack asked a grandfather about trout, a florist about peonies that don't wilt on vows, a ring-bearer why important shoes always pinch. The ring-bearer lifted one patent leather foot and confessed they were made by mean elves. Jack knelt and taught him the double loop knot. The boy ran off lighter by 2 ounces of worry, which is the only way anyone ever learns to fly. "Who taught you that?" Vivian murmured. "A nurse who was tired of tripping on my laces," he said. "You remember the people who make your life less dangerous." It was then that the air changed, subtle as a weather front, obvious as a headline. Conversations thinned. A triangular ripple of attention spread from the glass doors where Ethan Stone had just entered with Camille on his arm. Camille was incandescent in white silk. Ethan was curated masculinity in navy. They glided like people who had practiced not bumping into furniture. Ethan saw Vivian across the room and smiled the way a man smiles at a mirror when it returns the answer he ordered. He tightened his arm around Camille, murmured something that made her tilt her head just so, and began their approach, a choreography of conquest played over a dozen gala carpets. Vivian's spine found steel. Her fingers moved toward her onyx ring, then stilled at her watch as if to test the time and the plan they had written. Jack shifted one step, not obstructing, not hiding, simply recalibrating the geometry so she was not a lone point in a hostile equation. "Remember," she said without moving her lips. "Armor we can carry." "Steady," he answered. Ethan arrived with sunlight teeth. "Vivian," he said, warm enough to scald. "You look resilient." His eyes flicked to Jack. "And who do we have here?" "A narrative, Jack Carter," Jack said. "I prefer nouns." Ethan's smile tightened by a millimeter. Camille dipped perfectly. "It's so brave," she cooed to show up. "Bravery is for people in danger," Vivian said evenly. "I'm at a party." Ethan's gaze did its old inventory face stress the fall of hair the space beside her he used to believe he owned. It landed on their hands. "No ring," he observed. "That's a pity." Jack met his eyes without heat. "We brought something better," he said. "Oh," Ethan asked, amused. "And what's that?" "Enough," Jack replied. He turned slightly, placing himself in that small, unarguable way men do when they choose to be weather rather than scenery. "She's not alone." The sentence hung in the air like a bell you hear in your bones, and for a heartbeat the room forgot its script. The bell of Jack's sentence, "She's not alone," kept ringing long after the sound faded. Conversation stumbled, corrected themselves, pretended nothing had shifted. A waiter recalibrated his tray. The quartet landed a chord as if catching a glass before it fell. Ethan's smile never fully cracked, but the gloss thinned. "Good to meet you, Jack," he said, clipping the consonants. "We're all so happy, Vivian. Found something that works." Someone Jack corrected. "Not something." Camille squeezed Ethan's arm as if to signal that magnanimity photographs well. "We should circulate," she cooed then to Vivian with a sympathetic tilt. "You look lovely, not brave." Vivian added, eyes steady. "Just here." When they moved on, Margaret reappeared with the timing of a metronome. "That was tidy," she said, low enough for only two people to hear. "Keep it tidy," Vivian answered without flinching. "I'm done apologizing for existing." "Good," Margaret said. "Then exist well." She turned to Jack. "Mr. Carter, families like ours measure men by two things, whether they make a room safer and whether they know when to leave. So far, you've passed the first. I'll pass the second when she tells me to," Jack said. Margaret studied his face as if it were a contract with a clear indemnity clause. "We shall see," she said, and swept away. A band had replaced the quartet bass-brushed snare piano, and the ballroom exhaled into a softer tempo. The pianist threaded old standards like beads. Conversation loosened. Candles leaned into the windows. Vivian's shoulders recalibrated from parade rest to something almost human. "You did that," she murmured, not quite looking at Jack. "Did what took the oxygen out of a fire before it burned the drapes." He half smiled. Fire likes applause. Quiet starves it. A cousin tugged Vivian toward a cluster of relatives. "Tell the story about the elevator rescue," she demanded. "It's very woman in STEM, but for real estate." Later, Vivian said smoothly, and the cousin, surprised by the boundary, laughed and drifted. Jack drifted too toward the edge of the room where the lodge's lobby opened like a cedar-breathed pause. The Steinway waited black and patient. Beside it, on a stand near the stone fireplace, leaned a well-loved acoustic guitar, the kind of instrument lodges keep for singers who materialize out of snow. "Public toy," the pianist said, noticing Jack's glance during a break. "You play, a little," Jack answered. The pianist shrugged his bench invitation. "We're due a 15. If you want to make the room remember itself, now's the time." Jack looked back to the ballroom where Vivian laughed at something an aunt said, the laugh clean and unarmored again. He thought about Emma's paper sun, 3 shades of gold for big days. He lifted the guitar, checked its tuning with the respect you give a borrowed tool, and took a chair not on the stage but near the fireplace, visible if you were looking, ignorable if you weren't. He began with something simple. Shenandoah without words, a river of notes that carried its own memory. The room didn't hush. It leaned. Conversations continued, but slowed syllables softening around the melody like people remembering that silence is part of music too. Vivian felt it before she located it the way a space warms when someone means what they're doing. She stepped into the lobby and saw him, head-bowed, hands, sure eyes on an invisible horizon. He wasn't performing. He was telling something true without sentences. A little boy, shoes tied with brand-new double loops, sat cross-legged 3 feet away, chin propped on his fists. An elderly man near the fire closed his eyes the way old maps close around coastlines. A housekeeper passed with the cart slowed and let the song finish her walk for her. Jack modulated into autumn leaves, then wove back to the river. He didn't overstay the kindness. He landed on a last honest chord and let it go. The lobby applauded the way you applaud sunrise quietly because anything louder would be impolite. "Who taught you?" the pianist asked, returning to his bench. People who were too tired to talk, Jack said. He set the guitar back on its stand, wiped a thumbprint from the wood with the cuff of his suit, and turned straight into Vivian. "You can play," she said, not as compliment but as discovery. "I can listen," he corrected. "To wood and wire. To rooms," he said. "To what they need less of." "What did this room need less of? Winning," he said simply. The statement hit her like a door opening to air. "You hide it," she said, "that you can do that. I don't audition for rooms anymore." He didn't say not since, but she heard it anyway, the ghost of a sentence he wasn't ready to speak. "Your daughter's son has 3 golds," she said softly. "Who taught her that days could hold more than one light? Her mother taught her to see," he said. "I taught her to carry." The past pressed in, present and tender. Vivian chose not to press back. "Thank you," she said, for the song and the restraint and the way the night had just turned from brittle to bearable. "Armor check," Jack said, and glanced at her mouth. She let the smile go lazy around the corners. "Better human," he said. They stepped back into the ballroom with the feeling of coming in from weather. The band took over. People danced. The groom's mother cried a little at exactly the right moments. The photographer worked like a discreet wasp. Ethan and Camille rotated through conversations as if on casters, always returning to where eyes were thickest. Near the dessert table, wedding cake tasting disguised as generosity. Ethan intercepted Jack with the friendly tone men use when offering a warning wrapped as a joke. "Nice touch with the guitar," he said. "I didn't know Vivian was into troubadours." "She's into honesty," Jack said. "I try to be in the same neighborhood." Ethan's laugh didn't move his eyes. "This family eats hobbies for breakfast and men like you for sport. Pace yourself." Jack didn't tighten. "I'm not here to be eaten," he said, "or to compete. I'm here to stand beside someone who deserves not to be hunted at her own celebration. Every room is a hunt if you let it be." Ethan replied, pleased with his own line. "Only if you confuse attention with hunger," Jack said, and left the conversation fitter than he found it. On the terrace, the mountains had turned serious. Stars argued their old arguments. Vivian stepped into the cold for a minute of solitude and found it already occupied by the housekeeper from the lobby, hands wrapped around a paper cup. Cold, Vivian set an offering. "People think thin air makes them light," the woman said. "It just makes it easier to see what weighs you." Vivian looked out at the ridge where tomorrow's rehearsal would pretend to be practice. "Do you like working here?" she asked. "I like the nights when you can hear snow think," the woman said, then nodded toward the ballroom. "That man with the guitar, he plays like he's making room for everyone else." "That's his way," Vivian said. "Keep him," the woman said, as if she were talking about a practical tool. "The other kind are loud and borrow your life." When Vivian went back inside, Margaret intercepted with a cloak and a verdict. "You look like yourself again." Which self Vivian asked, not combative, just curious. "The child who didn't need a spotlight to know what she was worth," Margaret said. Then, after a measured breath, "He steadies you. I prefer that to fireworks." "Tonight, I prefer oxygen," Vivian said. They finished their obligations the way professionals finish marathons upright, grateful when the line arrives. At 10:40, Vivian checked her watch and tipped her chin toward the exit. Jack nodded. They reclaimed Emma from a kingdom of glue sticks and glitter. She slept against Jack's shoulder before the elevator side shut. At the suite door, Vivian paused with keys in hand. "Thank you," she said, "for the lobby, for the sentence earlier, for not making tonight about winning." "Winning is exhausting," Jack said. "Belonging is quiet. Good night, Jack. Good night, Vivian." He turned the corner with Emma's breath warm on his neck and the day finally blessedly letting go. Vivian stood a moment longer in the hallway and realized the thing that had cracked tonight wasn't her composure. It was the ice around the place where fear had lived. Inside the ballroom, a camera phone caught a 5-second clip Jack with the guitar. Vivian, in the doorway, the room leaning. By midnight, it would ping its way into the wrong hands. By morning, a whisper would harden into a story, hired musician, paid fiancé. It would be the sort of rumor people believe because it keeps love from being possible. But for now, before the wolves remembered the way to the door, the ridge was dark and honest, and two people on opposite sides of a world had both decided to be less alone. By morning, the mountain looked innocent. The internet did not. Vivian's phone, lit before sunrise, pings like hail on a roof. Gossip Desk, Stone's mystery music man, paid Fiancé, city beat guitar at the Lodge Romance, or casting. Call a DM from a reporter, confirm or correct Abigail's name, flashed next. Say nothing, she advised. Rumors starve without air. They also multiply in the dark, Vivian said. Then we control the light. No statements, no angles. Just live correctly. Live correctly. Vivian tasted the words like medicine she intended to take. Downstairs at the lodge breakfast, the room buzzed with the soft arrogance of wealth on vacation. Cousins in cashmere, uncles with opinions. The kind of laughter that forgets to check its volume. Jack arrived in a plain sweater, fresh-shaved, carrying Emma's pink beanie as if it were a crown. He greeted the server by name on the second try. He poured his daughter's orange juice before his coffee. Across the room, Ethan saw the three of them and smirked as if he'd written the rumor himself. "Join us," a cousin's husband called to Vivian, patting an empty chair as if he owned the chair and the air around it. "We're playing How They Met." My wife says Columbia Alumni Mixer. I say Charity Gala. Don here says he grinned Executive Search. Hallway Vivian said, taking her seat. City View Elementary. A sprinkling of polite disbelief. "Right," the man said, "and I fell in love in the produce aisle." Jack didn't bristle. "Lettuce is very romantic," he said mildly. "All those hearts." Emma snorted into her napkin. Vivian let herself smile. The cousin's husband wasn't finished. "So Jack, what do you do?" "I keep the places working," Jack said. "For whom?" "For whoever lives there." "School custodian," the man translated, pleased with his reduction. Father Jack corrected, pleased with nothing. Custodian is what pays for cereal. Something in the man's face flickered either shame or indigestion. He changed the subject to snow quality, which was safer than souls. After breakfast, the family migrated toward the slopes, some to ski, some to sip mulled something and congratulate the weather. Camille emerged in a white suit that seemed personally offended by stain. Photographers, the family kind, and the kind who just happened to be nearby, drifted into orbit. Ethan coasted up beside Jack while Vivian adjusted Emma's scarf. "We're taking the ridge," he said, like a man announcing a hunt. "Care to join? It's not for beginners." "Good thing I'm not competing," Jack said. Ethan laughed. "Everything's competition." "Only for people who can't stand still," Jack replied. Vivian heard it and didn't turn. She tucked Emma's braid into her beanie and whispered, "Armor check." Emma grinned, already fluent. "Steady," she whispered back. Inside the lodge, the engagement weekend rehearsal wound up at 6. The planner placed people like chess pieces with a headset voice that could part seas. "Couple here, parents there, ring bearer shoe check, flower girl petals are not confetti. Please don't throw them like you're mad at spring." Margaret watched everything with the eye of a portfolio manager. When she caught Vivian's glance, she gave a micro-nod that meant not perfection, but progress. At the back of the room, whispers did their old work mean as moths. Hired, actor, guitar. A bridesmaid demonstrated a smug little strum. A groomsman said, "If it's real, why no ring?" The rumor glued itself to every sentence and called it comedy. Vivian checked her watch. She had an exit plan. She didn't want to spend it before dinner. She scanned for Jack, found him near the staff doors talking to a bartender whose hands shook as he stacked clean glasses. "Big night?" Jack asked. "Second job," the kid confessed. "Student loans and I don't want to shatter anything I can't pay for." He lifted a rack of glassware with a noise like soft lightning. On cue, someone bumped an elbow. The rack tilted. In 3 seconds that stretched like taffy, 24 glasses began their slow-motion march toward ruin. Jack moved without drama, one step, both hands a quiet catch. He absorbed the weight, shifted it back onto the cart, and steadied the kid with a palm that said, "You are not a disaster." "Thank you." The bartender breathed, eyes wet with the kind of relief that makes grown men embarrassable. "Breathe," Jack said. "We're just moving gravity. No phones recorded it, no rumor noticed. Small rescues never trend." But Vivian saw. Her chest eased as if a strap had been loosened. Minutes later, the planner called a break. Ethan drifted near alone for once. He held up his phone with a familiar smirk. On the screen, the lobby clipped Jack with the guitar, Vivian in the doorway, the room leaning, captioned now with a neat Poison trial run with hired musician, "It plays." 1,000 likes. 2,000. Comments already dividing the world into believers and cynics, each sure of their kindness. "Don't worry," Ethan said, feigning sympathy. "It'll blow over. Stories always do when there's nothing to hide." Vivian met his performance with the stillness she used on bankers. "Is that right?" He leaned in confidential. "If he's the real thing, congratulations. If not, salvage what you can. You've always been good at salvage." Jack arrived in time to hear the last sentence. He didn't ask for context. He set a cup of water in Vivian's hand like a vote. Ethan's eyes glittered. "Stay hydrated," he said, and glided away. "Don't spend your exit on him," Jack murmured. "I'm not," Vivian said. "I'm spending my patience." Dinner hour softened the edges. Candlelight did its old trick. People told toasts they hadn't earned. A fiddle player traded with the pianist. Someone laughed too hard at a story about a drunk uncle who fell into a koi pond in '98. Camille floated perfect and arm-curled, the room's favorite noun. Jack sat through it like weather present, sturdy, not asking to be noticed. When servers cleared plates, a new game began, questions with teeth under napkins. So Jack, a groomsman, said, "What's your favorite vineyard ones that keep their workers insured?" Jack said, "What's your mountain? Whichever keeps kids safe at recess." "What's your watch?" "The clock on the school wall." He said then, seeing the man's grin sharpen, "It runs on honesty." A few seats down, Margaret sipped water and did not interfere. Vivian saw her mother watch Jack the way people watch a bridge hold under weight. Halfway through dessert, a small sound cut the silver from the room, a hiccup of panic. The ring-bearer, who had been fine in the lobby, was now pale and glassy-eyed at the doors, lost in a crowd of knees. The lights, the noise, the attention too much. He folded in on himself like a paper swan. Before anyone could delegate the compassion, Jack was there. He crouched to the boy's height and made his voice quiet and practical. "Hey, champ, that's a lot of room. Let's make it smaller." How the boy whispered. "Hands," Jack said. He put his palms together and breathed slow, exaggerating the rise and fall. The boy mirrored him. Color crept back. Jack slid a linen napkin over the boy's knees like a small tent. There, he said, "Inside the tent, you only have to be brave enough for two." The boy nodded, hiccuped, then managed a wan smile. Jack tied the napkin corners to the chair like guy lines and returned him to his parents with a line no one heard but the mother. "He's brave already. You can be the quiet." Vivian felt the room recalibrate around that act. Not everyone noticed. Enough did. She looked at Jack and thought not for the first time. This is what real looks like, the person who makes a room safer and knows when to leave it alone. Her phone buzzed again. A message from PR she could not ignore. "City Beat is moving the rumor to front page at midnight. Your foundation board is asking for clarity before their breakfast. We can kill it with a photo or starve it with silence. Decide. Abigail. I'll support whatever protects you. Just don't feed wolves because they barked." Vivian stared at the screen until the words blurred, then cleared. She had built an empire out of steel and timing. She could not build a life out of evasions. The agreement's lines were clear. The truth was clearer. She found Jack on the terrace again the night colder the stars, less negotiable. "I owe you honesty," she said without preface, and not the polite kind. Jack turned hands in his pockets, posture easy. "Honesty travels better when it's early. When I asked you," Vivian said, I told myself it didn't matter why, as long as we did it right. But it matters. At the start, I chose you because you were steady and unknown. That was a kind word for useful. She swallowed. You deserved better than my reasons. He let that sit. The mountain breathed, and now he asked. Now I'm standing next to a man whose first instinct is to make rooms gentler, Vivian said, and I'm realizing how long I've let rooms make me cruel. Jack didn't rush to console her out of the sentence. What do you want to do with that realization? He asked. Tell the truth before it uses us, she said, to my mother, to the board, to you. No more armor where it becomes a lie. He nodded once like a craftsman accepting a tool that fits his hand. Tomorrow then, he said, early, before the board. We tell Emma first in words she can carry, then we tell the people who think they own the story. Vivian exhaled. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said gently. Truth is heavier than rumor, but it builds better. The wind lifted Camille's laughter from inside like a ribbon someone dropped. The party continued a glittering machine. On the terrace under a sky that couldn't be bought, two people stood with their hands empty and felt richer than they had any right to feel. Tonight, Vivian said, sleep. Tonight, Jack agreed. We put the wolves on a diet. They parted at the suite corridor. Emma's paper sun leaned against a lamp where she'd propped it to catch real light. Jack kissed his daughter's hair and turned out her lamp. Vivian stood outside her own door with the phone buzzing in her hand and didn't answer. Inside, she sat at the desk and wrote 3 sentences for the morning, clear, clean, dangerous. When she finally lay down, the rumor still ran outside like water in gutters. But inside, something steadier had started to set truth poured into a frame. Tell me the truth in words I can carry. Emma said it from the edge of the hotel bed knees, tucked beneath her like a small bird ready to fly or fall. Morning light pressed pale squares onto the carpet. Jack sat beside her palm, covering the paper sun she'd propped against the lamp. Vivian stood hands open as if the right words might land if she gave them air. No, pretending, Vivian began. Last night we used a word fiancé that wasn't true. We said it to keep wolves away. That was armor. Today we stop using it. Emma's eyes searched her face. Are you in love with my dad? Vivian's throat tightened. I'm learning what it means to stand beside him, she said carefully. I respect him. I'm grateful for him. I don't want to hurt him. She glanced at Jack. Or you? Then don't let people make him small. Emma said simple as math. Jack squeezed his daughter's hand. We'll be honest from here, he said. Clean lines. Vivian nodded. I'm telling my board in an hour. Then my mother. Then if someone asks me in a hallway, I'll say it there too. Emma leaned forward. Say it first to yourself. Vivian breathed. I will. They walked together to the elevator, parted at the lobby, Emma to the playroom with Mara Jack to grab coffee, Vivian to the private dining room where the foundation board waited with pastries folders and the benevolent severity of people who write checks and think that makes them surgeons. Vivian said the chairwoman elegant and unsmiling. Fires happen. We contain them. Good morning, Vivian said, and placed 3 sentences on the table like bandages. 1, I won't lie to protect optics. 2, Mr. Carter is a friend who agreed to stand with me this weekend. 3, my personal life will not be leveraged for the Foundation's narrative or donors' comfort. A rustle. Eyebrows. Admirable, someone murmured in the tone people use for children's drawings. The PR director cleared his throat. A clarifying statement is necessary. We can position Mr. Carter as a longtime family friend who escorted you. Escort suggests purchase. Vivian cut in. He is not property. He wasn't hired. He isn't mine. Then, volunteer chaperone, he tried already opening a notes app. No, Vivian said. Margaret, at the end of the table, folded a napkin with surgical precision. What our donors need, she said, is the reassurance that you haven't lost judgment. What I need, Vivian answered, calm as winter, is to stop arranging my morality around other people's appetites. Silence. The chairwoman set down her coffee. Even truth has tone, my dear, she said. Choose one that doesn't bruise. I'll choose one that doesn't break, Vivian said. We are done here. As she rose, the PR director hustled beside her. If you won't approve language, the story writes itself. At least, let me say no engagement at this time. Vivian stopped in the hallway. Say this, Miss Crewe, Stone will not discuss her private life. The Foundation's mission is children's art education. That is the only story. He sighed, defeated in the way men are when their tools are taken, but the job remains. I'll try. They stepped into the lodge corridor just as a freelance photographer popped from a column like a conjurer camera already up. Ms. Stone, a second, who is Mr. Carter. Are you engaged? Is he hired? Is the guitar part of the package? Don't answer, the PR man hissed. Vivian looked at the lens and thought of Emma. Say it first to yourself. She pictured Jack catching falling glassware tying a child's shoes. Breathing rooms quieter. She picked the narrowest truth that wouldn't make him an object. Mr. Carter is my friend, she said. He's here because I asked him. That's all. Not romantic, the photographer pressed. So he's not your type. Something in the question turned crude. Before she could shut it down, a board member breezed past and tossed a grenade without looking. Of course not. He's the school custodian. Miss Crewe Stone's generous, but let's be serious. The camera clicked at the speed of malice. Vivian's cheeks went cold. That is not my voice, she said sharply. But the hallway had already done its work. Sentences travel faster than antidote. Jack turned the corner, then coffee in hand, and caught the last echo. He's the school custodian. Let's be serious. He didn't break stride. He offered the second cup to Vivian. Here, he said softly. Before the day takes more than it gives. I'm sorry, she whispered. A board member. I know what I am, Jack said. He looked her in the eyes. I'm not confused. The photographer pivoted hungry. Mr. Carter. Care to comment? Are you being paid? Are you? Jack shook his head. Not angry, just finished. I don't answer questions that make people smaller, he said. Find a bigger one. He walked away. The PR director chased the photographer with stern requests and empty threats. Vivian stood in the wake of her own good intentions and realized how quickly a clean line can be muddied by the wrong mouth. She found Jack minutes later on the roof terrace where the mountains stood like witnesses. He had set both coffees on the stone ledge. His hands were empty, his face not. I told the board the truth, she said. I tried to stop them from turning you into a prop. The hallway. It slipped. Hallways tell on us, Jack said quietly. They say what rooms are really made of. I should have said more to the camera, she said. I should have. You did enough, he said, then added almost gently until you didn't. The quiet between them wasn't cruel. It was honest. Vivian swallowed. At the start, I chose you because you were steady and unknown. That was useful to me. I hate the person that makes me. I don't hate her, he said. I just can't be her lesson. The sentence landed with the tenderness of someone refusing to save you from your homework. I can fix this, Vivian said. I can call City Beat. You can call everyone, he said. They'll still print what feeds them. He rested his hands on the ledge looking out at the ridge. I can lend you my steadiness. I cannot loan you my dignity. The words found the bruise and pressed. Vivian's eyes burned. What do you need me to do? Let me go while I still recognize myself. He turned to face her fully. We'll fly home today. Emma will be fine. She is more light than weather. You finish the weekend with the people who need it to be about them. Then if you want to talk where no one is rehearsing, we'll talk. You're leaving, she repeated as if the mountain might contradict him. I'm not walking out, Jack said. I'm walking back to where my promises live. A small shape appeared at the terrace door, Emma jacket unzipped hair a little wild from a playroom storm. She saw their faces and read the air the way children do, quicker than adults and truer. Are we going? She asked, voice more statement than question. Jack crouched. We are bug. Emma looked at Vivian. You said you wouldn't make him small. Vivian's composure broke on that sentence. I tried, she said the confession bare, and then I failed in a hallway. Emma nodded like a judge who wishes for mercy and looks for math. Dad says love is not a show, she said. Today, you made him part of one. Vivian's hand went to her watch, the agreed signal she suddenly wished she didn't need. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry, Jack. Sorry, Helps Jack said. Not as much as quiet. He stood. They walked to the elevator bank in three people's silence, the kind you keep because the next words must be better than the last ones. In the lobby, he signed the early checkout with the same neat printing he used on Emma's school forms. The clerk slid over the receipt as if he were lowering a small boat into a river. At the car, Emma hesitated. She held out the paper Sun to Vivian. Keep this, she said. 3 golds. For hard days. Vivian took it with both hands as if it were fragile and hot. I don't deserve this. Emma shrugged 8 and ancient. Sun is for everybody, she said. Jack closed the door with care the way you close a chapter you plan to reread. The sedan pulled away slow, then joined a road that belonged to no one's story. Vivian stood under a sky that could not be bought and watched them go until her eyes watered from wind or truth. Behind her, the lodge reheated its rooms with rumor. Ahead, the ridge waited like a question she'd finally decided to answer alone. By the time the sedan carrying Jack and Emma disappeared down the lodge drive, the mountain air felt sharper, like the world had changed the lock. Vivian stood until the taillights were memory, the paper Sun warm in her palm. Then she turned toward the lobby where rumor reheated itself under chandeliers. Her phone buzzed. City Beat, front page, a Lifestone's hired heart PR, added 3 urgent banners. She opened the draft statement she'd written at 2 a.m., read the neat sentences that protected optics but not souls, and deleted them one by one. Abigail called. How are you holding up? Like a wall that finally admits it's tired, Vivian said. Then don't hold, Abigail replied. Choose what to shelter, not what to hide. In the corridor outside the ballroom, Ethan arrived on cue, hands in pockets, grin curated. Camille floated a beat behind him, sparkling with the kind of light that had sponsors. Alone again, he asked faux soft, I'll try not to look triumphant. I won't try not to look bored, Vivian said. He angled closer, voice pitched intimate for the bystanders he pretended not to notice. I can make this, he gestured vaguely at the air where her reputation lived, go away. Your board wants calm. The family wants a picture that doesn't confuse them. Say you hired a consultant who overstepped. I'll back it up. Will be a story about 2 capable adults who learned from the past. You offer a cage with mirrors, she said. He blinked, then laughed as if she were charmingly dramatic. I offer structure. You've always been brilliant inside it. Brilliant women don't need cages, she said evenly. They need doors. Camille smiled without blinking. It's better for the wedding if love looks simple, she said. Then stop making it a costume, Vivian replied. Aunt Lydia, the family's unofficial town crier, hovered with a sympathetic pat. Everyone's talking, dear. We'll forgive a misstep, but you mustn't be reckless. I'm finished performing grief so you can applaud my restraint, Vivian said. Please stop asking me to be palatable. Lydia's mouth parted like a slow door. Ethan recovered first. Vivi, take a breath, he murmured. You're spiraling. I'm climbing, she said. It just looks like falling to people who prefer me small. The planner's headset chirped salvation. Rehearsal on the ridge in 10, she announced, clapping like a gym teacher. Couple parents, immediate family. On the ridge, the view was the sort that steals language. Even gossip lowered its voice. Members of the wedding party milled, shoulders hunched in expensive coats. The officiant, a tidy woman with winter cheeks, pointed and placed her clipboard decisive. Vivian took her position without being asked. Margaret approached gloved and immaculate. You look like granite, her mother said, which was either a compliment or a diagnosis. I feel like sand that finally stopped pretending to be glass, Vivian answered. Margaret's gaze flicked to the paper Sun peeking from Vivian's pocket. "You're carrying construction paper." "It's a compass," Vivian said, and didn't explain. The officiant rehearsed the cadence of vows while teenagers took selfies in the periphery. Ethan leaned to Camille whispered, and they laughed in harmony. Lydia whispered to another aunt, and that laugh landed like a hiccup of old cruelty. Vivian felt the swell of a story she refused to drown in. "Before we finish," she said, voice clear enough to cut air, "I need to say something that won't photograph well and will live longer than a headline." The circle cocked toward her, half curious, half terrified. "I made a mistake," she began. "Not the one you're enjoying. A better one. I asked a decent man to stand in a storm with me. I did it for a reason that protected me but didn't honor him. When people tried to make him small, I didn't stop them fast enough. That ends now." Lydia winced theatrically. Ethan smirked. Camille practiced compassion. The officiant looked pleased. Nothing makes officiants happier than a truth that sounds like a vow. Vivian continued steady. "I'm not issuing statements. I'm not performing penance. I'm telling you what is and what isn't. What is, Mr. Carter is my friend. He came because I asked for steadiness. What isn't, a purchase a stunt a lie I will maintain to make anyone comfortable." She looked at Ethan. "Not you, not the tabloids, not the family." Ethan's smile thinned. "You always had a taste for martyrdom. I have a taste for accuracy," she said, "and a spine." A small surprised sound escaped Margaret, half laugh, half pride, disguised as a cough. She took one deliberate step closer to her daughter. "In future," she said, "choose your storms. But if you're going to stand in one, don't crouch." "I won't," Vivian said. The officiant clapped her clipboard once. "Wonderful," she chirped as if the mountain had just signed the consent forms. "Back to places, please." Rehearsal resumed. Vivian said the scripted lines when asked and the real ones when it mattered. She did not look for Jack. She did not pretend he might come striding over the snow as orchestration swelled. She held his absence like a clean weight, an honest cost, not a punishment. Inside, the luncheon vibrated with relief at the return to program. Toasts resumed their safe shapes. Margaret signaled a white flag to the board with a nod that meant, "We are not apologizing." Abigail slid into a seat beside Vivian with contraband chocolate and a look that said, "I don't need details to know the headline in your chest." "How did the ridge feel?" she asked. "Correct," Vivian said, "like standing up straight where I used to bow." Abigail passed the chocolate. "And your heart," Loud Vivian said, "but clear." Ethan tried one more pass because men like him are constitutionally incapable of believing no is the last word. Camille's podcast is doing a special on redefining partnership. He offered as if presenting a sweater that might fit. We could frame this as part of a larger conversation. Vivian turned to him, patient as a teacher explaining the alphabet to a man who insists the letters belong to him. "You keep trying to hire my life," she said. "It's not for sale." He chuckled a sound that wore cologne. "You'll break something you can't fix." "Maybe," she said. "But I won't break myself to keep your reflection smooth." He lifted his glass in a toast he didn't earn and retreated to people who still believed applause could heal a deficit of character. After lunch, Vivian found Margaret by a window where snow held its breath. For a long moment they said nothing because the best conversations sometimes begin with the inventory of what won't be said. "I taught you to be unbreakable," Margaret said finally. "You taught me to look unbreakable," Vivian corrected. "There's a difference." Margaret's mouth acknowledged the point with the smallest twitch. "Our world punishes softness. Our world confuses softness with weakness," Vivian said. "Jack showed me. Softness is a kind of strength. It's the only one that lets people near." Margaret considered the white world and its old rules. "Will he forgive you?" she asked, not unkindly. "I won't ask for forgiveness as currency," Vivian said. "I'll ask for a conversation, when he's ready, in a room without an audience." Margaret nodded, as if approving a business plan that traded profit for solvency. "Then exist. Well, she said again, but this time it sounded less like an order and more like a blessing. Evening settled like a thoughtful animal. The family drifted into pre-wedding rituals. Vivian returned to her suite, set Emma's paper sun against the window, and let the last light pour through its 3 shades of gold. Her phone lay on the desk, heavy with drafts. She opened a new message to Jack and typed, "I hurt you with the right reasons, said the wrong way. I am learning how to be decent without armor. When you're ready to talk, I'll meet you where rooms don't perform." She did not hit send. Some truths need a door knock, not a notification. She made tea with hands that shook and stilled. In the silence, the lodge's bones creaked the way old timbers do, like a ship shifting its weight in honest water. Vivian stood very still and realized the sound she heard wasn't a building settling. It was a life resetting. Tomorrow she would sit through vows and clap for people who believed love could be photographed and sold. She would not flinch. She would wear no ring, no lie, only a spine and a paper sun. And somewhere down the mountain, in an apartment that smelled like lemon cleaner and spaghetti, a man would read to his daughter and tie a knot that held. Walls fall. Some leave rubble. Some leave rooms with more windows. Vivian chose windows. The city took the rumor and did what cities do, turned it into weather. It swirled for 2 days, then became background noise against buses and sirens and ordinary devotion. Vivian went back to work and refused to perform contrition for boardrooms. She signed contracts, returned calls, and slept badly with Emma's paper sun propped against her window like a stubborn lighthouse. Abigail set coffee on her desk and studied her friend's face. "You look like someone who climbed out of a pool and hasn't decided if she's cold or awake." "I'm both," Vivian said, "and I'm not done climbing." "Then climb toward the right door," Abigail answered. "Not the one with the cameras." Before Vivian could ask which door that was, her assistant poked in. City View Elementary called. They're hosting an art morning. The principal asked if you'd stop by. No press strictly for the kids. Vivian's yes arrived before the justification. "Tell them I'll be there." City View hummed the way it had the first day, zipper teeth pencil perfume, a banner that still insisted kindness counts. Ms. Jansen met her with the kind of smile teachers save for people who bring supplies and respect. "We hung the kids' sunshine drawings," she said. "Apparently, gold comes in more than one shade. Some days need extra," Vivian said, and Ms. Jansen's look suggested that sentence belonged on a bulletin board. The art room was a confetti field. Paper rays, glue-sticked borders, suns with faces, suns like halos. At a back table, Emma pressed sequins into a horizon tongue between her teeth. She looked up, saw Vivian, and after a flicker of calculation, children shouldn't need lifted a hand. "Hi," Emma said. Miss Jansen stayed nearby, arranging brushes with the casual vigilance of a chaperone who understands the world. "Do you have 2 minutes?" Emma asked. "Only if your teacher stays," Vivian replied. Miss Jansen nodded. "Right here," she said, settling on a stool within earshot and out of the way. Emma patted the chair across from her. Vivian sat. Up close, Emma's eyes were Jack's, steady, clear, with a kindness that didn't ask permission. On the table lay a small construction paper square folded into a door. "I made you this," Emma said. "It's a door. Dad says sometimes adults forget to use doors and try to climb through windows. That breaks glass." Vivian touched the paper gently. "He's right. I think you forgot the door." Emma continued, not unkind. "You told the truth, but you used the hallway voice. Hallways make everything louder and smaller." "I'm sorry," Vivian said softly. "I hurt your dad with the right reasons, said the wrong way. I'm learning slower than I want." Emma studied her as if weighing a math problem. "Are you going to give up?" "No," Vivian said. "But I won't chase him into corners either. He deserves quiet more than I deserve closure." Emma exhaled 8, going on ancient. "Dad is good at quiet. Sometimes he forgets quiet can sound like goodbye. If you want him to hear you, you have to knock on the door and say the hard thing with no coupons." "No coupons," Vivian echoed, a smile bending without breaking. "What's the hard thing?" "That you used him at first," Emma said, not flinching. and that you don't want to be that person anymore, and that you can be brave without being mean. Vivian's throat stung. You're right. Emma slid the paper door across the table. Promises sound different when your feet move, she said. Dad says that. Move your feet to where his are. Vivian glanced at Ms. Jansen, who gave a small approving nod that meant, this conversation is more useful than glitter. Vivian said carefully, I will reach out and ask if he wants to talk. I won't ask you to carry messages between us. That's not your job. Emma nodded, relieved she hadn't had to be the adult. Okay. She picked up a crayon and added a thin yellow line to her horizon. If he says yes, she added without looking up, we have a bench on our roof that watches the city. It's where he keeps his brave when the day ate some. He doesn't take people there. But I think he might let you sit if you ask with your real voice. Vivian tucked the paper door into her bag like a passport. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with that picture. It's not a picture, Emma said. It's directions. Vivian laughed through her nose, small, grateful. Then I'll follow them. She stopped at the principal's office on her way out to pledge another round of art supplies in Emma's Honor Clean lines, no headlines. The principal's handshake was the kind adults offer each other when they've both decided to act like the world can be stewarded. Outside, the air held its late winter metallic bite. Vivian stood on the sidewalk under a sky that hadn't chosen a season and called Jack. Voicemail. She breathed once chose words she could carry and spoke. Hi, it's Vivian. No armor, no script. I owe you the kind of apology that doesn't sell tickets. I used you at first hiding that, under better words, doesn't make it less true. You deserved better then, and you deserve peace now. If a conversation would help on your terms at your speed, I'll meet you where the city is quiet enough to hear you. If not, I'll leave you alone and put my lesson to work. Either way, thank you for teaching me to listen. She hung up before courage could turn into frosting. Then she texted the sentence that belonged in writing, no press, no performance. If and when you want to talk, I'll come to your rooftop or any bench you choose. I'll bring silence and the right words. V. Back at the office, Vivian worked the kind of hours that make Tower's honest meetings that ran on time a site visit, where she asked a foreman what he needed besides coffee and safety lectures. She signed a check for CityView's art program and told legal to keep it anonymous even from her biography. Margaret called to say very little in a supportive tone, which from Margaret was a bouquet. At dusk, the sky turned the color of second chances. Vivian stood at her window with the paper door in her palm and understood something that had been embarrassing to learn in public power was not how loud you could be. Power was how quietly you could choose to be decent and keep choosing it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, no, not unknown. Unsaved because she hadn't trusted herself with the convenience. Jack Carter. Thank you for the message. I'm not ready for words that have to be fast, but I'm ready for a place that lets them arrive. Roof tomorrow. 6:40 p.m. Emma will be with Miss Rosa downstairs. If you come as yourself. If you can't, I understand. Vivian read it twice then, once more for the version underneath. This is a door. Use it gently. Abigail appeared in the doorway like a reliable plot twist with takeout. I brought the good soup, she announced, then saw Vivian's face. Ah, a development. He invited me to the roof, Vivian said, as if naming a foreign country she'd long wanted to visit. Then, wear shoes made for truth, Abigail said. No stilettos on forgiveness. Vivian smiled. I'll bring my feet. That's the point, Abigail said. Promises sound different when your feet move. Vivian finished, and both women laughed like people who had earned their laughter. That night, Vivian didn't pace or rehearse. She wrote 2 lists what not to say. Excuses, optics, justification, and what to say. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm learning. Thank you. She put on a coat like a person, not a statue. She set Emma's paper sun next to the door so the morning would find her with its command be bright on purpose. In a small apartment across town, Jack stirred spaghetti sauce hard enough to pretend it required exertion. Emma did homework pencil whispering. When he told her that Vivian might come by tomorrow to talk on the roof, Emma nodded like a foregone conclusion. "I'll be at Ms. Rosa's," she said. "I have a date with her cat." "You set this up?" he asked, a warning that was gentler than rules. "I set up my part," she said. "I didn't send messages. I used crayons." She held up yellow fingertips. "That's legal." Jack huffed a laugh into his sauce. "Legal and luminous," he said. Then quieter, "You trust her? I trust what she wants to be," Emma said, and returned to long division. Jack washed the pan slower than necessary. He thought of roofs and benches of sentences that weigh what they say of a woman who had learned to put down armor without asking permission from people who profit when women carry it. He texted Margaret 3 words. "Thank you yesterday," because he knew mothers shift plates under the quakes their daughters cause, and he was old-fashioned enough to respect plate spinners. At 6:39 the next evening, the elevator in Jack's building coughed up a soft chime. Vivian stepped into a hallway that smelled like lemon cleaner and someone's dinner and knocked on the door marked 4B, not to be let in, but to let the sound of her arrival reach the life inside. A moment later, footsteps. The latch. Jack looked at her the way you look at a weather report that might be wrong this time. Neither of them spoke. He tipped his head toward the stairwell. The roof waited. The sky kept its appointment with gold. Vivian held up the paper door. "I brought the only prop I believe in," she said. Jack's mouth did that thing it did when he wanted to smile but respected the labor of restraint. "Then let's see if it opens." They climbed. The roof door sighed open as if it too believed in second chances. Evening had poured gold along the bricks. The bench by the parapet faced a skyline that didn't care about headlines. Jack stepped aside. Vivian came through holding a small metal lunchbox and a hand broom the color of rain. "I brought 2 honest things," she said. "Dinner that's warm and help that isn't metaphor." A corner of his mouth lifted. "You plan to sweep your way out of this." "I plan to sweep my way into telling the truth," she said, and set the lunchbox on the bench. "May I?" He nodded. She opened its soup in a thermos bread wrapped in a towel that still remembered an oven apples cut and browned a little at the edges because she had sliced them herself. "You cooked?" he asked, surprised but not unkind. "I asked the woman downstairs who makes real soup how not to ruin it," Vivian said. "Then I followed directions with fear and trembling. I thought about you and Emma with every stir. Turns out attention is a spice." They sat. The broom leaned against the bench like a witness. For a moment, no one spoke. Pigeons negotiated a far roof. Someone below tested a car horn as if it were a theory. The city inhaled the hour when work surrenders and homes try again. "I used you," Vivian began. She did not touch the soup yet. She did not reach for armor. "I dressed it up in words like steady and boundary and discretion, but the first motive was selfish. I didn't want to arrive alone. You were unknown, decent, safe. I told myself that made it fine. It didn't. I'm sorry." Jack listened the way he repaired patiently, like the truth had a stuck valve and would run if you waited. "Thank you," he said after a beat. Not for the apology, those sometimes go to the person who says them. For naming the thing without decorations. She nodded. "Decorations are how my family survives rooms. You deserve a room without tinsel." He looked out at the city. "You said the right words in Aspen." Then a hallway took them and made them smaller. "I let it," she said. "I stood still while someone downgraded you into a punchline. I knew better, and I didn't spend myself fast enough to stop it." "I don't need you to spend yourself reckless," he said. "I need you to spend yourself honest." She held his eyes. "I can do that. I'm learning late and in public, but I can." Wind threaded the space between them. She poured soup into the metal lid cups. He accepted one, sniffed, and smiled as if a room had remembered its own recipe. "I don't want you to be my lesson," Vivian said, "but I need to say what you taught me anyway. You showed me that steadiness is louder than spectacle, that rooms can be gentler, That armor is useful until it starts lying. He blew on the soup. I don't want to be your project, he said. I don't want you to, she answered. I want to open the door Emma gave me and ask if there's a way to be decent together without performance. She gestured to the broom. I brought this because I thought about how many times in Aspen I made other people clean up after my choices. I can't fix yesterday, but I can sweep my side of the bench. Jack set the soup down and reached for the broom, weighing it as if measuring her intent by its handle. Most messes aren't the kind a broom can meet, he said. I know, she said quietly. This one isn't. But making a habit of cleaning outside and inside seems like good practice for a human being. He passed the broom back and let a smile finish the distance his eyes had already covered. Then, start with that corner, he said, nodding at a drift of leaves that had learned to ignore attention. She rose and in a black coat that had met boardrooms swept leaves into a small satisfying pile. It was both ridiculous and perfect. Jack watched the motion efficient, unshowy stubborn. When she sat again, breath visible in the cooling air, he poured more soup and handed it over. Emma said I should ask with my real voice, Vivian said. So here it is. Would you be willing to try this again? Not the Aspen version. Not the word that shuts questions. The quiet version, walks to school, bad soup improved by practice, dinners that aren't photo opportunities. Me learning your world without turning it into content. Jack rubbed his thumb along the cup's rim and considered a future that did not require rehearsal. I can't be your shield, he said. I can't stand in rooms that make us characters. I can stand in rooms that make us neighbors. Yes, she said quickly. I don't need a shield. I need a neighbor with a key to his own house. And Emma, he asked. She doesn't need another goodbye she didn't schedule. I will not enter a door she isn't holding, Vivian said, and I will not name something before it is. I'm willing to earn every noun. He let that live between them. Darkness arrived without fanfare. Streetlights blinked like practical stars. I cried in Aspen, he said suddenly, voice low, almost amused at the confession. After we checked out, in the parking lot, it surprised me. I don't do that. I cried at the ridge, she answered just as simply. Not where they could see. I'm out of practice at letting water out, he huffed. You and me both. They ate in the tender quiet of people who have stopped pretending to be less hungry than they are. When the soup was gone and the apples were browned to honesty, Vivian closed the lunchbox with a click that sounded like a small vow. What do you need from me now? She asked. I need your slowness, Jack said. Not your speed. I need you to choose rooms I can survive. I need you to remember that belonging is quiet. And if you fail at those, I need the kind of sorry that changes the next calendar square. Yes, she said. To all of it. A knock sounded at the roof door, soft, polite. Ms. Rosa peeked her head in her voice, already whispering. Forgive me. Emma wanted to say good night. If now isn't, it is, Jack said. Emma slipped onto the roof in socked feet as if not to startle the night. She saw the lunchbox, the broom, the 2 cups, and read the State of the Union with the speed of children who are born into adults' weather. Hi, she said to Vivian. Did your feet move? They did, Vivian said. Up 4 flights. Good, Emma answered, satisfied. Dad Ms. Rosa says the cat is secretly a dog. She turned to Vivian, more solemn. Do you know how to braid? I know how to learn, Vivian said. Emma considered that and then stepped forward, quick hug around Vivian's waist like a ribbon tied without ceremony. Okay, she said. Good night. Good night, Bug, Jack murmured, smoothing her hair. Ms. Rosa ushered her down with the same hospitality she gave every day that tried. Silence returned companionable now. A plane stitched a white thread between burrows. Somewhere a siren remembered its purpose, then forgot it again. I don't know what to call this, Vivian said at last. I don't want to rush a label to the front line. We don't have to call it anything yet, Jack said. We can show it. She exhaled relief and something like joy reshaping her face. I can show it. He looked at her, really looked, and something in him that had stayed braced for 2 years loosened 2 notches. "You know," he said, "tone light to hide its weight, you don't have to bring a broom every time." "I won't," she said. "Sometimes I'll bring spoons. That would be nice." They stood to go, both reaching for the lunchbox at once and then letting the other carry it. At the door, Vivian paused, hand on the cold metal bar. "I've wanted to say this since the lobby," she said. "You make rooms safer, not smaller." Safer. It's a rare trick. It's not a trick, he said. It's a choice. Then, "Keep choosing it," she said. "I'll try to be a room that deserves it." He nodded, and the nod felt like a beginning. Downstairs, Ms. Rosa's cat thumped once, unbothered by redemption. On the roof, 2 people who used to be strangers walked back through a door that had finally been used properly, leaving behind a small, tidy pile of leaves and the echo of a sentence that would keep paying for itself. "We don't have to call it anything yet. We can show it." A year later, spring arrived like a decision. Behind Jack's building, the little patch of earth they'd argued into existence sat bordered by reclaimed lumber and a stubborn chain-link fence. A hand-painted sign letters, imperfect and proud, read Sunbench Garden. Emma had added 3 streaks of gold paint beneath the word sun, because some days still needed extra. Jack knelt in the soil palms, dark to the wrists, showing Emma how to cradle a seedling like an idea. "Roots don't hurry," he said. "They hold." Emma pressed dirt with careful thumbs. "Holding is slow magic," she announced, which was true enough to pass into family law. Vivian came through the gate in jeans and boots, hair rope-braided in a way that would have made old this-year Vivian laugh and this-year Vivian oddly proud. She carried a watering can in one hand and a little plaque in the other. The plaque was simple for those who make rooms safer. She set it by the bench and brushed soil from the letters with 2 fingers. "Looks right," Jack said. "It feels earned," she answered. The bench had been his long before her, a spot that held the city without bracing against it. Now it belonged to 3 people and whatever neighbors needed to sit until their hearts caught up with their heads. A broom leaned by the gate, not as penance anymore, just a habit of care. On the kitchen window inside, Emma's paper sun had faded at the edges and still glowed. Over the winter, their life had chosen sentences it could carry. Wednesdays were soup nights, sometimes hers, sometimes Jack's, sometimes Ms. Rosa's, when the week asked for mercy. Fridays, Vivian walked Emma to school, learning the art of backpack conferences and shoelace diplomacy. Sundays were for the garden, even when the garden was snow and the work was hope. Vivian had changed the way her world spoke. The Foundation's policies, rewritten in clean, unfancy language, now forbade the use of anyone's personal life as a funding strategy. The board adapted slower than she wanted, faster than she feared. The CityView art program expanded quietly to 3 schools with no press release and a waiting list measured in bright eyes. Margaret joined them twice, once to bring pruning shears, once to stand at the back of a crowded gym and clap until her hands ached because 2nd graders had recited poems about color. Ethan drifted to a different coastline of attention. Sometimes ghosts leave when the house remembers itself. Neighbors filtered through the gate all morning, Mr. Kaplan with a tin of carrot seeds and jokes older than the soil, Ms. Rosa with a tray of cuttings that rooted if spoken to in Spanish, 2 teenagers who asked if they could paint the fence with sunbursts and stayed to weed when nobody filmed them. No one mentioned headlines. People asked after shoulders and held babies and borrowed trowels like trust. Drink Jack told a row of fragile green as he tipped the watering can. "You're safe here." Or, "Say it for me too," Vivian teased. He did not tease back. "You're safe here," he said quietly. She blinked once as if a gust had found her eyes. "Thank you." Margaret arrived after lunch with peony roots wrapped in damp paper. She wore old sneakers like a secret. "These are stubborn," she said by way of greeting. "They survive winters that think they have the last word." "We know the type," Vivian said, taking the roots, not the baton. Margaret glanced at the plaque, then at Jack. "I was wrong about tone last spring," she said. "Plain, not dramatic. Truth does bruise sometimes. Bruises heal. Structures built on lies do not. Jack inclined his head. Thank you for saying it. I like this bench, Margaret added, changing the subject without discarding it. It tells people how to sit. That's the hope, Jack said. Emma tugged Vivian's sleeve. Ready for what braids? Emma grinned. You said you're learning. Vivian sat on the bench. Emma climbed behind her with a focus usually reserved for math and cat diplomacy. Small fingers worked. Vivian held still eyes on the garden while her hair learned the shape of belonging. What did we call this again? Emma asked, separating strands with the authority of a forewoman. We don't have to call it anything Vivian said. We can show it. Emma smiled into the work. Showing looks like pancakes on Thursdays and not rolling your eyes when people need extra light, she said. And bringing spoons, Jack put in. And bringing spoons, Vivian echoed, laughing. The teenagers returned with paint-splattered hands and a planned sunbursts on the fence 3 shades of gold because, obviously. Miss Rosa produced lemonade from nowhere. Mr. Kaplan told the joke again, worse than before, better because of it. A breeze rattled the leaves in the way new things applaud. Vivian stood and brushed dirt from her knees the way a person does when she's comfortable with earth. She looked at the plaque and felt a letter rise in her, one she had written a dozen times in drafts and never sent because it belonged here, not in an inbox. She spoke it aloud, not as performance, but as a record. I used to measure worth by the height of towers, she said, voice steady enough to share. Now I measure by the distance between 3 chairs at a table. I spent years learning how not to need anyone. It was expensive. This, she gestured to the bench, the dirt, the faces, is the return I never modeled. Thank you for teaching me a different math. Silence held long enough to be honored, then dissolved into the low conversation of work. Margaret knelt by the peonies. Jack straightened tomato cages. Emma sketched a small map of where Son would live in June like a general of tenderness. Vivian dug a narrow trench and set a row of basil-like punctuation. When the light bent toward evening, neighbors drifted out with promises to return. The teenagers left their brushes with a note taped to the fence. We'll finish after homework. Son doesn't mind waiting. Ms. Rosa carried away the empty lemonade pitcher and the news that her cat had forgiven everyone for everything. Mr. Kaplan saluted the bench. It's a good bench, he said. Seen a few. Jack washed his hands at the outdoor spigot, then dried them on his jeans because some habits only improve with time. He sat on the bench, patted the space beside him. Vivian joined. Emma claimed the other side and leaned into them both as if she were checking the load-bearing capacity of an idea. Winning is exhausting, Jack said, almost to himself. Belonging is quiet. Vivian finished smiling. Emma's braid work had produced something straight and sturdy. She tucked a daisy behind Vivian's ear, tilted her head to appraise, and declared, You look like a person. I feel like one, Vivian said. Across the alley, a child laughed the laugh that tells you summer is making plans. Somewhere, a radio played an old song with no irony. A pigeon chose their fence like a friend, not a critic. Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out the paper Sun. The edges were softer now, the gold less loud. She slid it into a clear sleeve and tied it to the fence with twine. Wind lifted it and set it back down with a tiny applause. For the hard days, she said. For everybody. Emma hopped up and read the plaque again, lips moving. For those who make rooms safer, she whispered. Dad, that's you. It's us, Jack answered. We keep choosing it. Vivian turned her hand, found Emma's, and made of the 3 an agreement older than any she had ever signed. No signatures, no witnesses, just skin and intent. What should we plant next week? Jack asked into the easy hush. Hope, Emma said promptly. It takes longer, but it keeps. Hope it is, Vivian said. They sat until the light faded and the city remembered it was night. The bench held. The garden breathed. The door in Vivian's bag stayed open without being touched. When they rose to go inside, Jack reached for the watering can. Vivian reached for the broom. Emma carried the seeds like a sacred object. None of them hurried. Roots don't. At the threshold, Vivian looked back once. Sunbursts climbed the fence 3 shades thick. The plaque caught the last light as if it meant to keep some for morning. She had wanted a perfect moment to announce her happiness once upon a broadcast. She had learned instead to live it where it mattered and let moments announce themselves. "Home," Jack said. "Home," Vivian echoed. Emma squeezed both their hands. "Home," she confirmed as if the word were a seed that needed 3 voices to germinate. They went inside. The night kept watch. The garden grew in the dark the way all honest things do quietly because anything louder would be impolite. If this story touched something gentle in you, take a breath and keep it. Because sometimes the quiet choices showing up, listening, making a room safer, change everything. Now, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever met someone who steadied the room just by being kind? Did you live through a moment where dignity, not noise, won the day? Maybe it happened at work, in a hallway, in a kitchen at midnight. Tell me what happened and what you learned. Your words might be the light someone else needs tonight. And tell me where you're watching from. City, country, or a small town with 1 traffic light, drop your location in the comments so this community can see how far our little garden grows. If this resonated, share the video with one person who could use a gentler room today. Click subscribe to join our circle of storytellers and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter of hope. Every week we meet here to sort truth from noise and choose the kind of love that builds. Thank you for spending this time with me truly. Your attention is a gift, and I don't take it lightly. Until the next story, be the person who brings an extra shade of gold.